one of the people who tweeted at me or just tweeted in general about a spring training game, when I said, by the way, that's not accurate, then the response was, well, I was being sarcastic. And I sort of believe him. He may have been sarcastic, but there's plenty of people who aren't. And I was one of them. I was one of the guys, my first year in baseball, at the tender young age of whatever I was, 32 years old, in February of 2000. First spring training game. Sitting there watching, excited as can be, want to remember the moment. Very badly want to win the game. What did I know? I knew how to run a company. I didn't really understand the rhythm of baseball. If you're not in the game, you can't really understand, and it takes years and years to really figure out the rhythmic nature of the game, the seasonal nature, the body clock nature, the way it impacts you in every way, the way that every day becomes a little bit like Groundhog Day. I would always tell people, hey, you want to know where I am? I'm at the same damn place every day at 7:05 p.m. Every day. I'm either at a game or watching a game every day, 7:05. Want to know where I am? Easy. So the first day of spring training, first game, I want to tell you how it works. Just from the inside, so you know where the serious parts are and where the not so serious parts are. So you show up to spring training, you've got a locker clubhouse full of people. You actually, when you build a spring training facility and when you build out your clubhouse in spring training, it's not like a home clubhouse for a regular stadium, for your everyday stadium during the season. The lockers are not as big. They're not as nice. Nothing's as good. And there's more of them. Because when spring training starts, you may have 60 guys in camp. So you pack everyone in and you bring in ancillary lockers, which are, they're not foldable. They're not flexible. There's a damn word for it on a Monday morning. Temporary is the word I'm thinking of. You bring in temporary lockers like you're in high school, and they're all in the middle of the clubhouse. So you have an extra, 5 or 10 lockers. Every locker's taken up. You have an auxiliary locker room where some of the minor league guys who sometimes play in the major league games, when you need an extra player or two, that's even more separate. So you come into spring training, the clubhouse is full of people. Then you go into the coach's room, and the first thing that you do when spring training starts is you make a schedule. The schedule has your regulars, your invited players who have a good chance to make the team, your invited players who are on the bubble, and your invited players who are only making the team if you've got unforeseen injuries or there is a level of performance that cannot be ignored, which should never happen because any level of performance in spring training is not indicative of how the regular season will go, but I'll get back to that. No, I'm never going to get back to it. I'm just saying when a guy hits 420 during spring with 13 home runs and 30 RBI and never strikes out, makes great defensive plays, and you say, wow, we had him in the invite, no chance to make. Now we're going to put him on the team. We got to put him on the team. What a great spring he had. We had a guy named, he had a bunch of home runs one year, Coca, and he was not due to make the team, and he just went off, and so we put him on the team. He never really made it. I want to say his name was Abraham Nunez, but I may be thinking of someone completely different. And on a Monday morning, I don't expect Coca to find it because it's probably difficult to find. But there was a player who just had such a phenomenal spring that he was on track to hit 720 home runs in one season. In any case, so you put the names on a board. Then you draw a calendar that has the date of every spring training day. Game. Well, there's a game every day, but there's off days. But you put the off days in there too. And you don't put days of the week. You just put what date it is. And then you have a box below every single player. What you keep track of for pitchers is number of pitches, and for hitters, number of at-bats. Because the view is you need to get your pitchers built up as they head into the regular season, and you need to get hitters their required number of at-bats so they're ready to go April 1, opening day, whenever opening day is going to be. Every hitter is different. Every hitter requires a different number of at-bats. There's some guys who want 4 at-bats the last 7 days, 3 at-bats the 7 days before that, 2 at-bats the 7 days before that. There's some guys who say, just put me in. I'll play when I play. I'll take a couple at-bats here, a couple at-bats there. I'll be ready. There's some pitchers who can go from 30 to 40 to 60 to 80 pitches every 5 days. We would demand that bullpen arms do back-to-backs the last 10 days of spring training, 2 sets of back-to-backs so they're ready to go back-to-back when the regular season begins. There's other relievers who are going to be your long guys, so you want to get them a start in spring training at least, or some sort of relief. What never happened during spring training, which is hugely bizarre, in the beginning of spring, when the games first start, you actually have your closer pitch early in the game because you want your closer pitching against other teams' regulars, and other teams and you pull your regulars early in spring after 1 or 2 at-bats. So you do not put your closer in to close a game in spring training because he'd be facing Larry, Moe, and Curly, and you would not get a good indication of whether or not he's ready to go. But the last week of spring training, you actually schedule a few night games to get the players ready to do their night schedule. And then you do players in the positions that are going to be in the batting order, pitchers, starting pitching, bullpen, setup guys, closer. You actually, the last week of spring training, have regular games. But the first game of spring training, where I was so excited, so into it, it is so meaningless that I don't think that there are proper words that have been constructed in the English language to explain to you how little executives focus on the early games of spring training. It is simply about, actually, I was almost going to say literally. Sorry, Levitard. Actually, it's about checking a box. You do the early games, the first game, the second game, the fourth game, the sixth game, to make sure that your pitchers and your hitters are getting the work they need. What about during spring when everyone says, who's your opening day pitcher? There's a fight for the number 3 spot in the rotation. It's between these 4 guys to see who's going to be your number 2 starter. Do you know in the front office how much we focus on who are going to be the starters in what order? Hold on. Wait for it. Nope. We don't. We have in our mind who the number 1 starter is, and we line up the number 1 starter from the beginning of spring training. We count backwards from opening day, 5 days before he'll start, 5 days before that he'll start, 5 days before that he'll start. So if you want to know who your team's opening day starter is, get out the abacus. That's all you need. You have to keep in mind there's off days, and sometimes teams like to give an extra day to their opening day pitcher in the middle of spring. So maybe when you line it up, you start from opening day, go backwards, and you may not be able to figure out until 3 weeks to go in spring training, which would be the second week of March before you can guess. But you don't need a manager to make this big announcement. It used to be a very big deal. The Marlins today announced who their opening day starter is. Everybody knew. Coke is telling me now, welcome to the show, that Nunez hit 1 home run for the Marlins in 58 games in 2004, but that's not entirely relevant. The interesting thing that I was asking, is he the guy who had that great spring training? That's what I want to know, Coca. That would be the value added. All right, what? This hello, Coca. Do you know when you whisper like that they can't hear you? The people listening to the show can't hear you, but I can't hear you either. But if you yell, I can hear you. And I do. All right, whatever. I'm not even going to tell everyone that Abraham Nunez set the record for home runs in the Grapefruit League in spring training that offseason. And it was not offseason. That was during the season. All right, he set the record. I have the right guy. Synapses are flying here on the first day of March. It's the first day of the 3rd month. This is the first day of the last month of the first quarter of 2021. Is that possible? Anyway, so that's how we set up pitching. That's how we set up hitting. The reason why your best players play in the first 2 innings of spring training, do you know what they do after they get their 2 at-bats and play in the field for 2 innings? And then if you're at a spring training game, you watch them walk out of the field. They do running because we make them run from pole to pole, and then they leave. They literally leave the complex. Hey, Marcel, I just have a question. Did we win yesterday? Hell no, I have no idea. Literally, darn it, that is a mental oral crutch that I have. I'm going to work on that, Coca. I'm really going to try not to say that anymore. They don't care who wins or who loses. So game 1 happens. You set up your batting order. You speak to your manager. And here's the routine of spring training. Remember, it is morning-based. Unlike the regular season, which is night-based, spring training games are in the afternoon, which means report time is anywhere between 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. The players have to come. The first thing players do when they get to spring training every single day, they check in with the trainer. How do you feel? Do you have a sunburn? Does anything hurt? Do you have soreness? Because as players are ramping up, they get soreness. You want to get ahead of it because you want them ready for regular season. That's the object of spring training. Executives do not care if they win the Grapefruit League, if they win the Cactus League, if they're above 500, below 500 with wins and losses. They do not care. There's one exception, and that was me when I started, and then it was me after every fire sale, which I never called them fire sale. They were payroll flexibility adjustments. I think that's what I called them. In 2006, we had tried to repeat the 03 World Championship in 04 and 05, even though we had lost Derek Lee and Pudge Rodriguez. But then in 05, we had signed Delgado and Leiter, and we had a great team. Everything was good. And it didn't work. Traded everyone away and started over in 06 with Hanley and Ugla on the team and that great young pitching staff with Josh Johnson, Anibal Sanchez, and Scott Olson, Ricky Nolasco. We said to Girardi, who was a first-time manager, we said, listen, let's try to teach these guys. We're supposed to lose 100 games. Everyone is projecting us to lose 100 games. Let's try to win during spring training. Let's actually manage to win these games. Forget development. Forget getting everyone ready. Let's manage to win, because if we can instill a winning feeling or a winning culture, that'll translate to the regular season. It sounds so asinine when I say it right now, but it literally came. It's unbelievable. I'm going to have to get one of those from Saving Silverman with Jason Biggs and Steve Zahn and Jack Black. I'm going to have to get and Amanda Peet, one of those things when Jason Biggs was at dinner with the trapeze artist after they had kidnapped Amanda Peet, and they put a taser, like an electric shock, on his nipple every time he said the name of his previous girlfriend during his next date. They would tase him from the truck. Steve Zahn would. I'm going to have to get that for every time I say little bzz. I can't say little bzz. We should do that, Coca. That'd be sort of funny. Do you know what else is funny on a random Monday? I have no idea where I was. I don't. I think we were talking about spring training, and I think we may have been talking about, I don't know, Coca. Can you help me? Playing to win in 2006. Thank you, Coca. So we tell Girardi, let's try to win as many games as possible. And we ended up winning. And I could have this wrong, but I don't think so. I believe that we won the Grapefruit League that season, that we finished with the best record in the Grapefruit League. And we presented Joe with a bag of grapefruits. And it was a thing because our view was, we're not going to win in the regular season. Let's try to win the damn Grapefruit League. We ended up going, I think, 79 and 83 that season. Girardi won Manager of the Year and then got shit-canned. And that was 2006. But in general, you don't pay attention to spring training results at all. So when you're looking at your team and you're looking at the at-bats, you cannot do, ready? 69, 68, 67. When you're following your favorite team during spring training and you're looking at box scores on the app on your phone, on the CBS Sports app, and you see that a player is 0 for 2 or 1 for 4, or he pitched 2 innings, gave up 3 hits and 4 runs, or 3 innings, no hits, 1 run. Don't worry. It doesn't matter. Spring training is really called spring training. You are training. You are prepping. You are trying to stay healthy. That is the first thing and the last thing that should matter and does matter to executives. Get through spring training healthy. If you sat down a GM and you said, what is the most important part of spring training? And they weren't lying to you, some of them will say, and they'll sort of stand on his or her high horse and say, well, spring training is when we set the tone for the regular season. Spring training is when we come together as a team and we get ready to win. No, it's not. Spring training, the only thing that matters is to get through it without injury. If you can do that, that would be great. It's never happened. It doesn't happen. It can't happen by definition, which is why you've got the different silos of players on the team, bubble, off the team. And if you have a lot of off the team guys on your team when spring training ends, you know you did not have a successful spring training. So we would go out and watch the games very differently in spring training than in the regular season. We're looking just to see no injuries. We're looking to make sure we keep track because we get a list before every game of who's playing when, how many at-bats, which pitchers are pitching in what inning, who the backup pitchers are in case a pitcher cannot get through an inning because it's not based on innings, it's based on pitches. So if a bullpen guy is coming in, you want him to pitch the sixth inning, his plan is to pitch the sixth inning, but he's only going to throw 25 pitches and he can't get anyone out. That's when the manager comes out and brings in another pitcher to finish that inning. And that pitcher does not get to start the next inning because that pitcher didn't know whether he was going to pitch or not because he's called the backup pitcher. The backup pitcher is the guy who's ready to pitch to finish an inning for a guy who's supposed to finish the inning but can't because of pitch count. So we're looking at those things. We're looking to see if fundamentals are happening correctly, if the players know what the wheel play is and where they're going in different situations, because we have it in our sort of paper, what the plays are, where all of the players are supposed to be, what the signs are, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the first day of spring training. It's really nothing more than that. It's not worth you getting upset about. It's not worth you having confirmation bias. The Dodgers are the best team in baseball. They won a game. In spring training, they're going to be great. Forget it. As a matter of fact, Coca, I think we got to do a wait to see here. And the wait to see is, I'm going to guarantee it, the winner of the Grapefruit League in 2021 and the winner of the Cactus League, both winners will not make the playoffs. There's almost an inverse correlation. Now, if they expand the playoffs, this wait to see is a wash. But as it currently stands, because it expanded the playoffs, in theory, they could expand it to 28 teams. And then the odds are super good that the winner of the Cactus and Grapefruit League will make the playoffs. But the way it is now, I'm going to say with 10 teams going to the playoffs, 1 out of every 3, I guess the odds are totally in my favor, by the way, with this wait to see. But my point of the wait to see is that really, it doesn't matter.